stand together, we'll never fall.
Well, hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the All Around Growth Podcast. My name is Rob Kaiser, and I am your host. Today is Wednesday, September 27th, 2023, and this is episode number 517 of a show where we talk about all around growth. That's right, personal growth and development, all things relating to growth in all aspects of our life, whether it's financial, physical, personal development, family, spiritual, social, career, whatever it is, you name it. It's probably something that that's been talked about here on the show at some point in the past over the course of the 500 or so episodes. And during this month of the show, as we approach the 3-year anniversary of it, we've been reflecting on the past top 5 episodes. And this week, we are reviewing the number 2 top episode, which is episode number 200, titled, I Fired My Health Coach and My Financial Coach. For some reason, this seemed to be a popular episode, perhaps because of the provocative title of the episode, I Fired My Health Coach and My Financial Coach. And it was interesting to revisit that and listen to it. It was an episode that was recorded on September 23rd, 2021. And it was interesting because it was about 2 years ago today. 2 years ago this week was the second most popular episode. And it's interesting because I can take a step back in time and think about where I was at that time, where I am now, and think about where I want to go in the future. Now, in this episode, if you haven't listened to it, I'll link to it in the show notes. Like I said, it's episode number 200. I fired my financial coach and my health coach. I'll give you a second to pause, check out the show notes, and for context, what might be worth doing, or not, it's your call, but it might be worth going back and listening to that episode to gain some context on what I'm going to talk about today. So, if you're interested in doing that, by all means, take a moment right now, hit the pause button, check out the show notes, and go back in time and revisit episode number 200, titled, I Fired My Financial and My Health Coach. Now, for those of you who have listened to that episode already, or for those of you who have just hit the pause button and returned to the episode after listening to it, here are some thoughts on that show. At that time, I was struggling with finances. The years leading up to that time, I was struggling with my finances. And when I say struggling with my finances, I mean that I was struggling with debt, credit card debt, primarily. And I felt like I was in a hole that I just couldn't get out of. For most of my adult life, I had been caught up in this cycle, this pattern of debt, and I'd kind of reached a point where I thought it was inevitable that I was going to carry this burden of financial debt for the rest of my life. And I realized it didn't have to be that way. I was no stranger to Dave Ramsey. I was very familiar with his work because I'd been listening to him on talk radio for years. Now keep in mind, I recorded this in 2021, and in that episode I talked about how I took my first Financial Peace University course in 2017, but by the time I was traveling and on the road, I had been listening to talk radio, and I was initially attracted to Dave Ramsey because he wasn't the usual talking head, and it was a refreshing perspective and something that I could listen to that wasn't the same old news, sports, talk radio, right? And listening to him and listening to the people that called into his show, I realized that it didn't have to be that way. But at the same time, for years, I convinced myself that I was different than everybody else, that everybody else's story was their story, and they didn't know what it was like to be me, and that I was different than them, and my circumstances were different. And well, the reality is, I'm not different than you, and you're not different than me, and none of us are really that different than one another. We all have struggles. We all have burdens. And like I said in the initial introductory episode, we all have baggage, but what defines us is how we carry it. And with regard to financial baggage, if we're the type of person that has historically struggled with debt, then Dave Ramsey's approach through the baby steps is a simple way to repattern how we live, how we spend our money, how we save our money, and ultimately how we give our money away. And I think it's those three things, especially the last one of giving our money away, that is integral to helping us get out of this cycle of debt. A lot of people will argue that Dave Ramsey's approach is not the best approach to financial management, and I understand that. But the reality is, most people who subscribe to the principles of the baby steps are just like me. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired. They're tired of living a life with the constraints of debt, and they're looking for a solution. The solution is very clear, it's possible, and it can be done. And I say that with confidence because I did it. Tens of thousands of dollars of debt were paid off slowly but surely and incrementally using the exact framework that was outlined in the baby steps. It's simple. I ended up also working with a financial coach because it was easy for me to do that and to justify the cost of it, because that financial coach served as an accountability partner. I didn't have an accountability partner at that time because I was a single man. I wasn't married. I didn't have a spouse to go into this program and jump on board with together. So in a sense, I would talk about these things, and my financial coach would help hold me accountable through the conference calls or the Zoom calls and meetings that we would have together. He would help hold me accountable, give me homework, help me look at things through a different perspective, and help me understand what I was doing and why I was doing it and why it was important to do some of these things differently. In that episode, I talked about why I fired my financial coach, and ultimately the reason why I did is because after years of being exposed to the baby steps and after years of trying to implement them in my life, my way, I finally subscribed to the principles 100%. I started tithing. I started giving away money to charity. And as soon as I started giving I started receiving more. That's a tough concept for a lot of people to grab, but that's a concept that I firmly believe in. You have to give it away to keep it, and you have to give it away to grow it. Now, here we are, 2 years after the fact. My income is nowhere near where it used to be. I've left my day job. I'm self-employed. I'm trying to grow the family business. And most of what I make goes back into the business. The actual paychecks that I make are quite small. I hope and work so that I can grow that and do better. But the reality is I make less now than I've made in my entire adult life. And that is sometimes a bitter pill to swallow. I've made a lot of sacrifices to engage in this current lifestyle that I'm living right now. And there's a lot of people listening, but Rob, you've got this, and Rob, you've got that, na. You know, the people that are going to, bicker with you about the sacrifices that you've made and the sacrifices that you haven't, and the things that you've done and the things that you haven't done, what you have and have not, those are people that want to pick you apart because they're not doing the things that you are. Why? Well, it's probably because they're afraid to. So whatever the case may be, you've got the ability to get out of debt. Because if you're in debt, you're probably in debt because you don't know any alternative. That's how it was for me. I lived my life that way for decades until now. And even though I have the least amount of income that I've had in my entire life, I don't subscribe to the idea that I need to remain in debt. I can do something about it. I can get out of it. I can continue to grow my wealth because I now understand that wealth isn't simply limited to the financial realm. Wealth applies to all aspects of life. And that's kind of a good segue to why and how I fired my health coach. At that time, 2 years ago, I was working with someone who offered their health coaching services for free. And I ended up firing them, for lack of a better term, really, which was more me communicating to them that I was going to work with functional medicine to address all of the health issues that I was experiencing up to that point in time. A lot of gastrointestinal problems, neurological issues. I have epilepsy, for those of you who don't already know that. Just a number of issues that I've been unable to effectively address historically through conventional medicine. And I'd heard numerous people talk about the benefits of functional medicine, and I decided that I would give it a shot myself. And it was around this time 2 years ago that I began that path of functional medicine to achieve excellent results with my own physical health and well-being. So where do I stand today with my finances? Well, I've already explained a little bit about that. So where do I stand today with my health? I'll be honest with you. Not as good as it was. Why? Well, I could sit here and make excuses about why and try to justify it. And quite frankly, that's what I've done a lot of to myself. over the past few months. But looking back, since I left my day job, which was May of 2022, almost 18 months ago, I have sacrificed my own health and well-being to live the life that I'm living now. I've sacrificed my exercise routines. I've sacrificed my diet. And the consequences of doing so are noticeable. Not just in the fact that I've gained some weight, but it's noticeable. In my day job, I was relatively active, and doing what I do now, I'm nowhere near as active. I'm on my feet for considerable amounts of time, but I'm not physically active like I used to be. On the flip side, with regard to my physical health, there has been one significant change that I've made, which was the elimination of alcohol and drugs from my life, any mind-altering substances. Why did I do that? Because, quite frankly, using any and all of those things just didn't serve me well. The cons started to outweigh the pros. So I decided to stop. This is the basis of functional medicine. We begin with an elimination diet. And then slowly, over time, we begin reintroducing certain things that we've eliminated from our diet to see how our body responds to that. Now, I'm not at a point in life, nor do I ever think that I will get there, where I'm going to feel comfortable reintroducing alcohol or any mind-altering substances back into my life, because I don't need it. And quite frankly, I don't want it. Having not had that be a part of my life for the entire duration of the 2023 year, despite all the hardships and challenges that were associated with my father's cancer and his death, I have no desire to return to that lifestyle that I previously lived, where that was a part of my life. And despite the fact that I went through functional medicine and continued with continued using a lot of these substances, thinking that I was healthy, the reality was I may have been in some of the best physical health that I'd ever been in my life, but I was not emotionally healthy. I was not spiritually healthy. The relationships that I had with my family and my social circles were not healthy. And I sure as hell wasn't really experiencing a career that I would consider healthy. And a lot of that probably had to do with my approach towards life and the way in which I would manage stress and trying to have an open mind, and all the things I thought that these things did for me, they actually worked against me. But I didn't want to eliminate them from my life, because just like debt, it was a comfortable routine that I'd been in for years. It was a comfortable cycle and a pattern of behavior that I'd been in for years. Not just years, but decades. It became a lifestyle. So I changed it. And just like my finances, and just like my health, I've developed new habits. And new habits are hard to break. Some of those habits over the past 12 months have been good. Some of those habits have been bad. And so I may not be at a point where I necessarily need a health coach, but it probably would serve me well if I revisited some of those components and aspects and things that I learned from the world of functional medicine. Exactly how I'm going to do that, I don't know. I've just been giving this a lot of thought lately because I can feel myself experiencing a bit of physical decline. But on the other hand, there's a lot of positives that come from eliminating certain things in your life that you've consumed because it's just what you've done. So I don't do that any longer, and it's for the better. Now, in the show notes from the original episode 200, I fired my health coach and my financial coach. I linked to the health coach that I previously worked with. I also linked to the 48 Days Eagles community, which is where I learned in large part about functional medicine, how I diverted some of those funds that I was using for the health coach. And while I'm not actively participating in the 48 Days community, I'm still very much involved in it. So if you are interested in checking that out, then go ahead and check out the show notes from episode 200. Give that a listen. It's been an interesting journey over the past couple of years. And the reality is, I don't think too much about the future. I do, but I don't. And what I mean by that is, right now, I live a life where I have to concern myself with today, first and foremost. Because if I end up fixating about the future, it causes me stress and anxiety. So really, what I need to do is I need to focus on today. And that's why I'm recording today, this Wednesday, September 27th. Normally, over the past month, I've been recording episodes on Tuesdays. But quite frankly, yesterday, I didn't record. It was a long weekend. It was a good weekend. And I spent Monday basically taking a day off. Yes, I had to run around. I had to grab produce. I had to do things. But later in the day, I ended up spending time in fellowship with people and doing things that I need to do to ensure that I stay emotionally, spiritually, socially, all of those things to stay fit, right? So Tuesday, it was a long day. I needed to play catch up for taking some personal time on Monday. And today, while I still have a lot going on and a lot to do, I'm in a better headspace than I was yesterday because, quite frankly, I spent yesterday focusing on all the things that I need to do so that I can do the things I want to do, and debating on why I do the things I do. You know, am I going to continue doing certain things? Am I going to stop doing certain things? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? Am I going to do on? You know, and that's not the right. I just didn't feel comfortable recording yesterday based on where my head was at. So I didn't. In the past, when I was recording on a daily basis, I would record just to record for the sake of recording. Now I record when I'm in a good space to do that because, well, this is my show and I do what I want. And I hope that, when I talk about this, and I hope that, the messages that come across are of value to you or anyone else for that matter, because that's that's always been kind of the point of doing what I do, is to share with someone my own journey, my own story, the path that got me to where I am now and the path to where I'm going in the future. And like I said, yeah, I don't think that much about tomorrow. There's a lot of people who might say, well, if you're not doing that, fail to plan to fail. It's not that I'm failing to plan. But over the last year and a half, I've made some significant life changes and made some significant transition in life. Admittedly, I didn't handle that all that well. So, today, I'm basically rolling through life one day at a time. I'm thinking about goals in the short term in a 30-day period. Once I've done that consecutively, I'll begin thinking about goals over the course of a 3-year period, much like I talked about in past episodes using this goal-setting workbook. And that goal-setting workbook that I've talked about extensively in the past, and I'll link to in the show notes today, is exactly where the 7 aspects of life come from that I previously mentioned in the beginning of the podcast. What makes all-around growth what all-around growth is? A balanced life in terms of the financial aspect of our lives, physical, personal development, family, spiritual, social, career. In that goal-setting workbook, we look at how to set goals in each area of our life, and we do so in November. Dial that in by mid-December. Spend the last couple of weeks in December finalizing that, tweaking it, and getting ready to approach the holidays so that, when we move into the new year, we're not actively trying to figure out what we're going to do that year. We've already lined it out a couple of months prior so that when the first of the year comes, we can begin executing on that which we've already planned. So I've got 30-day goals in place right now, utilizing the process outlined in The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale, which I'll link to in the show notes, which if you're subscribing to the podcast, you'll see popping up in your feed every day for the month of November. And that's it. 1 day, 30 days, 1 year, 3 years, and then all of a sudden, we find ourselves repeating the process over and over and over again. So guys, I hope that this little reflection on episode number 200, recorded just about 2 years ago today, was interesting to you. It was interesting to me talking about my life, my journey, my plans, and I hope that there's some value in this. If there is, I would really appreciate some feedback. If you think that this serves you, if you think there's value in this, let me know. Whether it's on social media, on Facebook, in a comment, on an Instagram post, in the Telegram group, which you can be a part of at t.me/allaroundgrowth, or in an email at allaroundgrowth@gmail.com. If you like what you hear, just drop me a line, shoot me a message, and say, hey, what you do matters. I appreciate the message that you have to share. Or if you think it sucks, then by all means, shoot me a message and say, yo, Rob, your content sucks. Why are you doing what you do? Because I'm interested in that too. I'm genuinely interested in what you have to say. So let me know. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at allaroundgrowth, allaroundgrowth@gmail.com, Telegram, t.me/allaroundgrowth. I don't know. Whatever you want to use, it's cool with me. I'm on those platforms. You can interact with me there. But nevertheless, I'm interested in what you have to say. And if you've got a favorite episode in the past, let me know what it is. And ultimately, if you do like what you hear, let me know. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Share it on social media. Share it with some friends and family. Anything is helpful. But most of all, whether you share it or not, leave a review or not, your feedback is what matters to me, because I appreciate you being a part of the show. I appreciate the feedback when it comes. I appreciate you being a part of my life, being a part of this show, because in large part, the show wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for you. So keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate you being a part of the show. I appreciate you being a part of my life. I hope that you have a wonderful day today. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you. God bless.
In a world of pain, what can I do? The needs are many and answers a few. People turn away, and I wonder why. If I can help somebody, then I want to try. People may think that it's odd that I believe in friendship and love, and truth is always the best way to the world that may seem odd. I'm an odd fellow. I'm an odd fellow. I'm an odd fellow. If we stand together, we'll never fall. We can make a difference and answer the call. You know the times are wasting every day, and we can help somebody along the way. People may think that it's odd that I believe in friendship and love. Truth is always the best way to the world that may seem odd. I'm an odd fellow. You're an